Hello everybody, this is Ehab. So how much you should be saving for retirement is an old question that everybody wants to know the answer to. Also, everybody wants to know how much should I be saving in my 20s, how much should I be saving in my 30s, 40s, and so on and so forth. The answer to this question really depends on two things. When do you plan to retire? And what type of lifestyle you're looking for when you retire. There are some general guidelines about every age that tells you how much you should be invested, how much you should be saved at that time in order for you to retire at a specific age. There is some general information regarding that, but we will tackle every single one of them and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. A lot of people will say that you have to save at least 10 times your annual salary in order for you to retire by the age of 67, for example. If you're making $50,000 a year, then you have to have saved $500,000 in order for you to retire at that time. This is just general information, not specific to your situation, but let's go by each age group and I'll tell you what each age group should entail and how much you should be saved and invested at that time. So let's start with age group 20s. So if you are in your 20s, the first thing you want to do is the minute you get a job, get involved into the 401k or any employer retirement account that they offer. Anything they offer you as an employer, whether they have a match or not, go ahead and participate in it. This is your best way to get started with investment as soon as possible. The second thing you want to do, even if you don't or if your employer does not provide a 401k plan, go ahead and open up a Roth IRA account. This is a tax-free account. I talk about this all the time. The minute you get a Roth IRA and invest into it, by the time you reach 59 and a half, you can get that money tax-free completely to you. That Roth IRA account lets you invest $6,000 a year, and that could be changed every single year, depends on the IRS, but currently it's $6,000 a year. Try to maximize it. If you can do that, just go ahead and do it. In your 20s should also be when you get a credit card. In my opinion, it should have been done earlier than that, but if you're just getting started, that's okay. Get a credit card, try to establish your credit, specifically because credit score really depends heavily on historical payments. So if you're making payments on time, then most likely you're going to bump up your credit score. I made a whole video about how to get a perfect credit score and how important it is for you to get a great credit score in order for you to qualify a wide range of finances for you. At this age, also try to save at least 20% of your income. And remember, this is the best age that you can save as much money as you can for two reasons. One, you have no responsibilities. So besides yourself and your income and maybe a student loan, you really don't have much going on. No family, no kids. All the expenses should be really minimized and try to maximize your savings at this age. Two, the time is on your side. So if you're in your 20s, saving $100 in your 20s is not like saving $100 in your 30s, 40s, and so on. It makes a huge difference when compounding interest plays a role into this and your money grows over time significantly just because you invested that much earlier in time. Now let's get to age group 30s. So at this age, hopefully you're established in your career and hopefully you have a little bit of a steady income, and that way you can bump up your savings a little bit more. Assuming you have worked on your credit, even if you have, try to bump it up a little bit and try to get a good credit score. That way you can qualify to purchase a house. Purchasing a house in your 30s will be the biggest investment you're gonna make in your entire life. But it's going to be your best investment too, because this is a place where you're going to live in it, and at the same time you're going to try to pay it off, low interest, and at the same time, over time, it's going to go up in value. At this age is when we basically try to pay off all your bad debt. And bad debt, what I mean by that is anything that has an interest rate above 5%. So besides a house mortgage or a student loan, you really shouldn't have anything besides those two. Any credit cards, high interest, anything that have ranked up into a debt, try to pay it off completely at this age. At this age, you also need to keep at least 6 months worth of your expenses as savings in an emergency fund. So in case you quit your job, you get laid off, whatever happens, or we go through pandemic just like how we did last year, you can at least have a little bit of savings that you can rely on in case of an emergency. And then until you find a new job or you switch jobs or you move to another state, that way you can support yourself in the meantime until you land onto something else. At this age is also when you need to aim for a goal to have at least 1 year worth of your salary saved up or invested at the same time. This might be a big goal for people, but it is doable. This all depends on your finances and your situation and how you manage your finances. But if you could save up 1 year worth of your salary in your 30s, please go ahead and do it. So now the age group of 40s. So in your 40s, you probably have a steady income and your income is actually increasing. You're probably making more money than you ever did before in your 30s or even your 20s. And you know what that means. When you're making more money, that doesn't mean you're spending more money. That means you are actually saving more money and you're maxing out your retirement. So at this age, you need to max out all of your retirement accounts. So for the Roth IRA, for example, you need to max out completely. Currently, it's at $6,000 a year. And for the 401k, you need to max it out as well, and it's currently at $19,500. And when I say currently, that's because the IRS will adjust it on an annual basis, so the number could change. At this age is when you try to determine how much you need exactly to retire. And this is simple, there's nothing complicated about that. All you have to do is figure out your average annual expenses and multiply that by the number of years you think you're going to be in retirement. So for example, if your average annual expenses are $30,000 a year, and you think you're going to be 30 years into retirement after you retire, then you're going to need $900,000 saved or invested in order for you to retire comfortably at that time. That same formula applies if your expenses are higher or lower. At this age, also, you need to aim to have at least 3 times your annual income saved. So if your annual income is $70,000 a year, then you need to aim to at least have $210,000 saved up or invested for retirement. Now at the age of 50, you should have at least 5 to 7 times your annual salary saved up at this time. So if your annual salary is $70,000 a year, again the same example, you multiply that by 5 to 7, that will give you $350,000 to $490,000 saved up or invested at that age group. At this age, you need to be more specific about how much exactly you're going to be needing when you retire and how much you're going to need to actually make it happen to retire on time. Many people make certain moves at this age. For example, downsizing when they have, their kids have left the house is big, they downsize and go into a smaller house. They try to cut their expenses or even maybe move to another state where the expenses are not as high as where they live currently. That way they minimize on their expenses. Now at the age group of 60s, you should have at least 10 to 12 times your annual salary saved at that time. Also, you should have been trying to pay off your mortgage as soon as possible. Even in your 50s or your 60s, when you think you're going to be in the same house, in your retirement, then your best bet is to actually pay off that mortgage and try to live in the same house after retirement. Simply because housing is the largest expense in your budget. So if that expense is paid off, it will cut your expenses significantly. So you don't have to worry about that big of a portion to eat up your budget. And in return, you're going to need much less money to retire comfortably. In your 60s also, when you start to actually withdraw from your retirement accounts, you can withdraw from it penalty free. You can only pay the taxes on it. And if it's a Roth IRA, you're actually getting the money tax free. At this age, you can also start collecting Social Security income. That only supplements your current, retirement or investments that you're making, but it's just a supplement. It's not going to be your primary income because it's not as much as it should be. My personal opinion, God knows if the Social Security system is going to be around at that time, especially for a millennial, but who knows? I don't really depend on it. I don't think it's going to be there. And even if it does, then the income that's going to provide, it's probably not significant enough where it's going to cover all of your expenses. That's just my personal opinion. So always put it on the side, pretend that it's never going to be there. The Social Security system is not going to be there. Only depend on yourself and how much you're going to be saved and invested. And if anything comes from the Social Security, great. If not, then you have yourself covered. That's it for me today, guys. I hope that was helpful. Again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. And until next time.